So Congress, specifically the Investigations Committee, which is headed up by Senator Richard Blumenthal, is doing everything in its power to pump the brakes, if not maybe potentially completely grind to a halt, the proposed merger between LIV Golf and the PGA Tour. Now, they just had another hearing yesterday. It was an hour and a half long. There was a lot to it. We're going to break it all down right now and tell you the key takeaways and the most important moments. But the real question is this second now hearing with potentials for more in the future all just a big dog and pony show from Congress, or does Congress have the actual ability to halt this proposed merger between LIV and the PGA Tour? Now, just recently, we broke down here this incredible leak of information that came out because we've all been kind of waiting to see what exactly that framework agreement is going to be, how these two are going to come together. And we had a really credible source of information, which I said, like I said, we broke down in a recent video. But the key takeaway of that was that it looks like in 2025, you're going to see LIV and the PGA Tour come together under an umbrella organization to form 18 events, and those events will feature fields of the top golfers in the world coming from both LIV and from the PGA Tour. So the first time, other than majors, we're seeing them really come together. But more importantly, the funding for that is going to be coming from Saudi Arabia, specifically the PIF, which is going to kick in another $2 billion investment. So those are the plans as we understand them right now. The question is, how is Congress getting involved in this, and how will that potentially gum up the works? So kicking it off with yesterday's hearing, what I can tell you is that it started with Senator Blumenthal making some opening remarks. Those opening remarks were largely around him making a case for why Americans should be concerned about this deal. He talked largely about the human rights record of Saudi Arabia, and he talked more specifically about this increasing investment as they see more and more coming from Saudi Arabia investing in U.S. institutions. Of course, a large part of the focus was on the PGA Tour and LIV. However, he was saying there's a bigger picture here, and they had tried to make a case for many, many billions of dollars of investment. He also specifically did call out and use the word sports washing, so that's where the primary concern was. Now, part of this hearing, and we'll talk about the subpoena in just a second, was largely also a reaction to some of the way that that Saudi Arabia, the PIF, on that side have responded to his calls to have them come in and testify, which they've kind of steered around. We're going to get into that in a second. But talking specifically about what was said in that meeting by Senator Blumenthal, he said, and the crust of this is, he said, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, that's the PIF, cannot have it both ways. If it wants to engage in the United States commercially, it must be subject to United States law and oversight. That oversight includes this subcommittee's inquiry. So if you remember, there was the initial investigation was launched when the PGA Tour and LIV first kind of surprised everyone with this announcement of a potential merger. At the time, there was an initial hearing was called, and they actually two individuals from the PGA Tour were called in to testify in that initial hearing. This was back in July, and the two that testified were the PGA Tour's Chief Operating Officer, Ron Price, and the Policy Board member, Jimmy Dunn. They both testified in front of the subcommittee. So where does that bring us with yesterday's hearing? Well, the subcommittee wanted to also hear from the other side. So we heard a little bit from the PGA Tour. Arguably, I don't think a lot of information was really gathered in that initial. There was a lot of questions left unanswered. And the real questions that Congress wants to get to the bottom of here are a little bit more of the nuances of the investments, where the money's going, what money is being sent where from the PIF. Now, on the Saudi Arabia side, effectively the pushback has been them effectively saying, listen, we're a sovereign nation. We are not in any way obligated to or bound by any of the rules and laws of the oversight of Congress, because we, like I said, we're a sovereign nation. We don't have to disclose our investments. We don't have to disclose all that. On the other side, on the Congress side, they're saying, well, yes, you do. If you're going to have a significant investment, and as he said here, if you're going to be engaging in the United States commercially, which arguably controlling something as big of a sport as the PGA Tour and golf is, and because part of this framework was the PGA Tour and this new umbrella organization moving a little bit away from the nonprofit into a for-profit entity. So what Congress is arguing is saying, like, if you're going to have a for-profit entity operating in the United States, then we do have oversight. So we've got a little bit of a headbutting here. But both as we know, Greg Norman, the LIV Golf CEO, as well as the head of the PIF, Yasser Al-Rumayyan, both of them were asked to come in and testify in that, in the original meetings with Congress. And both of them basically cited scheduling problems, just ducking it, just not coming. So where does this bring us for yesterday? So effectively, now the committee is looking for, where do they have a lever that they can pull, that they can put a little bit more pressure on the PIF. And I think that the committee has believed that they found that is in this this PIF U.S.-based subsidiary. So this is the USSA International. This is a subsidiary of the PIF operating here in the States, and they're part of the investment and the funding that's going through it. So what happened was, and basically in an hour and a half of a hearing that went on yesterday, the key and the most important takeaway is that Congress has issued an official subpoena to this PIF U.S.-based subsidiary, the USSA, and the subpoena was for documents related to the PIF's takeover of American Golf and other investments throughout the United States. So, like I said, this is the one spot they figure, if they're getting stonewalled from going directly to the PIF, and that the head of that, the Saudi head of that, well, where can we go and apply pressure? There's a U.S.-based subsidiary here. I'm no legal expert. I don't know if exactly how much that subpoena holds water. If you're a lawyer, if you know more about it, let us know in the comments. But it appears that they have at least some jurisdiction over this U.S. subsidiary. So that's where the pressure is going to be applied next. Congress, like I said, they did note that this LIV deal is just one investment in a much larger portfolio, growing portfolio of Saudi investment. So I think what we're going to see is beyond the world of golf. If we do continue to see more of this type of investment, I think that that's where you'll start to see things gear up. If you start to see the PIF getting involved, I've even heard rumblings of getting involved in tennis and some other sports. If you continue to see that, where the bigger picture is growing involvement in investment in these, which are, they're sports, but they're also commercial activities here in the States, I think the pressure is going to continue to increase. However, as far as this PIF deal, the LIV and PGA Tour joining forces, I personally don't think that there's going to be enough here. I don't think that ultimately Congress holds enough power to really put a stop to this. We've heard things with antitrust laws and things like that. There are some different levers, like I said, that they can pull, but effectively at the moment, it seems like both the PGA Tour and LIV are keeping Congress as much as they can at an arm's length. The PGA Tour has a little bit less of an opportunity to duck Congress because being a U.S.-based entity, they come under that jurisdiction. But like I said, by no means is this just something that's just going to breeze by. We can see that Congress is going to continue to apply the pressure, and evidence of that is that just recently in the news, just a week or two ago, we talked about this here on the show as well, that LIV Golf had hired a very high-powered lobbying firm, some lawyers in Washington, D.C., lobbying, of course, on their behalf. So the by no means is either side backing down. It seems like Congress is using every ounce of pressure that they can physically apply, of which, like I said, dealing with a sovereign nation, their own nation, it's tough for them, but they're looking for different avenues. And on the same token, on the LIV side, they're not taking it lightly. Their investment continues to grow as far as even the spend that they're now spending on lobbying firms and lawyers. So where does this put us? Look, admittedly, as a person who doesn't follow politics particularly closely, doesn't follow the nuances of Congress closely, all I can say is that it seems like there's going to be as much grinding the wheels as much and slowing it down as much as Congress can do. But when we're talking about investments and just pouring as much money as we're seeing, it seems like an unlimited amount of money coming from the PIF. I don't see this being enough to stop the deal and kill the deal, but I'm sure there are some people on both sides who are being made nervous by these hearings. At the end of the day, these are congressional legal hearings. These are matters to take seriously, but whether or not it will kill the deal, ultimately, I'd have to see a whole lot more before I could say that it's going to kill the deal. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Make sure you comment below. We will continue to keep you updated as more comes out, as more hearings come up, and as we see more from both sides. So make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.